other council members. First, I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. The next motion I'd like to hear is a motion to suspend all council rules that requires or contemplates in-person meetings and in-person voting. Is there a motion? Is there someone wants to say so moved?
So moved.
Second.
And there's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So we do have one item that is up for a public hearing this afternoon. And I believe the petitioners are here, or there's some here to participate. And just to go over some of the rules here that we abide by, what we'll do is we will conduct a public hearing here this afternoon and ask for, after a report from our planning department, we'll then ask for those who wish to speak in favor to speak. And then for those who wish to speak against the proposed conditional use zoning. And then we'll open up to committee for questions and then all of council for questions. And then this evening at 7 o'clock, in essence, we'll repeat that same procedure. However, the only difference, real difference is that the committee will make a recommendation to all of council in terms of the proposed conditional use zoning request that's before us. So with that, our first step though is to have a representative from our law department swear in anyone who is here wishing to speak this afternoon on the public hearing. So is there a lawyer here?
Yes.
To?
Yes, Rebecca Advent is here.
Okay,
Oh.
anyone who's wishing to speak regarding the public hearing, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good, thank you. So the first item, or the one item that is up for public hearing here this afternoon, is a ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an addition at 1055 Home Avenue and declaring an emergency. Mr. Antonucci, please.
Thank you,
provide
Mr.
your report.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. ATCPC of Ohio LLC is the operator of a conditionally approved medical marijuana cultivation and processing facility at this former City of Akron Sewer Department building at 1055 Home Avenue. The petitioner now wishes to construct an addition onto the south side of the now 47,129 square foot building for an expanded cultivation area. The two-story building would have a footprint of 86 feet 6 inches by 181 feet 11 inches, containing 15,747 square feet per floor. The facade on the western side facing Home Avenue would be clad in brick to match the existing building, and would also include cast stone details, also reminiscent of the existing building. There would be minimal upgrades to the site, but will include a new landscape bed in front of the addition. The functioning of the facility will remain as is in compliance with all state of Ohio requirements for cultivation and processing of medical marijuana. The proposed medical marijuana cultivation and production addition of the property along this industrial corridor is appropriate. Any petitioner for medical marijuana cultivation and processing site must satisfy numerous and vigorous state of Ohio requirements. The addition would allow the petitioner to better serve the community by providing medical marijuana throughout the state. The both Planning Commission, planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 1050, to have the right address, it's on Home Avenue, 1055 Home Avenue. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor?
Yes, this is Ian Jones at Mann Parsons Gray Architects. And we are the architect doing the plans for the addition. And for this addition, it is a level 1 cultivator's license in the state of Ohio. And this addition would be filling out the license. And so right now, I think they have about 12,000 square feet of cultivation area right now, and the license permits up to 25,000. And so this addition would get them to the full 25,000. And this would also match what our client submitted to the state in his application for licensure, is that he would build out his facility in multiple phases. So this would be that second phase to fulfill the licensure. He will be adding some employees, but he doesn't know how many right now. So that's a little bit up in the air, but there would be addition of some employees, I've been told.
Okay, Mr. Jones, thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use of 1055 Home Avenue? Raise your hand. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 1055 Home Avenue? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone? All right, great. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of this particular meeting, and we will open up to questions from the committee. Is there any committee members have questions? Any committee members with questions at this point? Okay.
Oh, could I jump in really quick? One more thing.
Yeah, sure.
Adam Tamarius, the owner, will be available at the 7 p.m. meeting. So if there's anything I can't answer, he'll be there at 7.
Okay.
So comes up in the meantime.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any council members, questions? I see Mr. Malik's hand up and then Mr. Swirsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess my initial question is just what the timeline for the improvements would be. And I just also wanted to make a comment that, I know that this is something that there was a lot of discussion in council about the last few years about putting in the whole process by which this medical marijuana system would work. And, having visited the completed site as it currently stands, it's just like other industrial uses. And it's sort of like a first class, top notch, really function that's happening in the city, and one of only a few in the state. And so I think that, the petitioner has done a really good job living up to the commitments they made previously, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Mr. Swirsky?
Well, just like the petitioner to give us a little more detail about who will be using your service and what will the benefits be to these people?
Okay. Well, is there anyone, I know a couple of years ago when we first started the process, we had quite a bit of discussion in reference to some of those issues, but we can ask again if there's a petitioner here would like anyone representing the petitioner would like to make a comment on that question.
I can answer the question about the timeline. Right now, we are working on drawings, the construction documents, and we have submitted drawings for the foundation of the building. And so if we were to receive approval, we would have permits to begin construction probably within a month or so. And I would expect it to be complete in early 2021.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you. I do know, if it may help Mr. Swirsky's question, that this council did, we approved this, the exact same use, the cultivation processing facility use here at 1055 Home Avenue, ordinance number 206-2017. That was, it's the same kind of use, but they're asking for the expansion here. And so,
I have no doubts about the value of this. I just thought we have bunch of new members. We have people from the public, maybe just tuning in. And I just thought it's not a bad idea to remind everybody who benefits and what they are, what kinds of people use medical marijuana. Just a short thing. I thought I was throwing a softball question.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone here that's qualified to answer that. I see Mr. Malik, his hand is up. Maybe he could.
Yeah, and I can jump into if you'd like.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it might be something that's appropriate for Mr. Tamarios to address, this evening, talking
This
about.
evening would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Just a little reminder for us all. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Questions or comments from any other committee members, council members at this time?
Councilwoman Amobian's hand is raised.
Oh, okay. Yes, Ms. Mobian.
Yes, I just have two comments. The first one is that there's a list of medical conditions that this medicated marijuana can be used for. And I think you can really go online and you have conditions that they can treat and you can purchase for that reason. And I don't remember them all, but there's a list. My question is, it sounds like this company has been extremely successful. I'm curious as to the composition of your staffing. Is it diverse? Have you been able to hire folks in the city of Akron, African Americans? Can you give us some indication of what's going on there?
Mr. Jones, can you answer that? You're muted.
Yep, sorry about that. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure Adam Tamarius could answer that tonight. I could also have him email if that would be better if you want to answer before the 7 o'clock meeting.
But are you planning, Mr. Chair, to recommend passage of this tonight, or are you going to wait until we come back from recess?
Well, we still have to have a public hearing this evening at 7 o'clock. And we are asked to vote on something that's a conditional use that previously, and it's just an extension of that same conditional use. But I don't know what's going to happen at 7 o'clock, but based on the fact that this is basically the same kind of use, it kind of makes sense to move forward with it. But like I said, without knowing what's going to happen at 7.
Yeah, okay. With that in mind, if you could have someone forward that information before 7 o'clock, that would be helpful. If we have questions, we'll be able to ask at that time or earlier.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks.
All right. Any other questions on the zoning, conditional use zoning for 1055 Home Avenue? Anything else whatsoever? So, okay, good. Well, hearing none, again, we'll invite the petitioners back this evening. 7 o'clock, we'll have an additional public hearing, after which, of course, we will make a recommendation. Okay, very good. Now to move on to the balance of the agenda, I'm going to recommend time on 2 through and including 6. And then item number 7, this is the ordinance approving the historic designation of 711 Johnston Street as a historic landmark. We had discussed this last week. This is approving the city portion of approving that application process. I understand this went through the Historic Review Board that we currently have in the city. They checked off on it. Is that correct, Mr. Antonucci?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Also spoke to the ward council person, Ms. Samples. I understand you're okay with it as well?
Yes, I spoke with the residents on Betty Street. Yeah, they're fine.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Based on that, I'm going to recommend, is there someone here wishing to make a favorable recommendation with suspension of the rule? Anyone?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Against? Very good. We'll recommend approval this evening on that particular item. Okay, item number 8 is ordinance authorizing the execution of a development agreement with Canal Place B, Limited Liability Corporation, and Canal Place C, a limited liability corporation, and the Goodrich Limited Liability LLC, or its designee, providing for the acquisition, sale, and redevelopment of property in the Opportunity Park Renewal District. We had quite a discussion last week on this particular item. This is approximately 139 units, apartment units located in our downtown area near the Gojo headquarters area, Canal Place near the our Bounce facility. Basically what this is both a development agreement as well as putting us in the chain of title for some TIF. So is there any questions or comments from any committee members at this time? Any questions or comments? I don't think there was any. Okay, with that, I will recommend, can I please get a favorable report with suspension of the rules item?
I recommend a favorable report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second it.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Okay, that's item number 8. And then I will recommend on time 9 through and including 19. Recommend time on all of those. And we'll go and file item number 20. This was a petition that was drawn by the sponsor, or by the petitioner, I should say. So item 20 we'll file this evening, okay? And then time on the balance of the agenda. And then now we'll move on to the new list of legislation. Okay, and this is item number 4, resolution identifying the Summit Lake neighborhood in the city of Akron as a revitalization area for priority investment by City of Akron, expressing support for the application of a choice neighborhood planning grant by the Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority, MHA, for the Summit Lake neighborhood. Is there someone here on this particular item?
Good afternoon, Committee
Hardy.
Chair.
I saw Mr. Hardy's hand up.
I'm only going to speak briefly and then pass it right over to Helen. So
Okay.
she's right on the ball. So just to lay this out, we've been having conversations between the Office of Integrated Development and AMHA and the Summit Lake community, particularly our Civic Commons footprint, about pursuing a Choice Neighborhoods grant. This is, and I know it's not apples to apples, and Brian and Aaron will correct me, I'm sure, but if you all remember the old Hope 6 level projects, this is sort of the next evolution of what those used to be, is what Choice Neighborhoods are. So we're talking about a systemic rehabilitation and reconstruction of public housing going along with all that we're doing. And so this resolution is simply a requirement for the application for the planning grant. That's step 1, as Helen and AMHA will explain a little bit further, but I just wanted to point that out, that the reason we have to phrase the resolution this way and pass a resolution at all is because it is a requirement that the city show that this particular area is a priority from a redevelopment standpoint. So with that, I'll pass it over to Helen and the team.
Thank you. So as Mr. Hardy indicated, this is similar to the Hope 6 project. For some folks that may not be familiar with what Hope 6 is, think Cascade Village and Edgewood Homes. So this is the first step in the process. HUD is now requiring that the Housing Authority submit for what they're referring to as a quote unquote planning grant. So that planning grant is a grant for about $450,000. It'll allow for HUD, AMHA to do extensive outreach to the neighborhood residents and looking at what type of improvements are needed. Choice Neighborhoods focuses on 3 core areas, focusing on housing, replacing distressed public and assisted housing within the high quality mixed income areas, looking at people, very extensive outreach to the neighborhood residents to improve outcomes of household living in that targeted area. Also looking at employment, health, income, and children's education. And the third component of the choice neighborhoods is the neighborhood itself, looking at creating any conditions necessary for public and private reinvestment in the area, and looking at other amenities such as safety, good schools, commercial activity, and anything that's important to the family's choice about their community. The choice neighborhood would require a 1-for-1 replacement, and the residents that are currently residing at the facility, at the Summit Lakes home, would also have the option to move back to that location. If awarded, this would be approximately a 2-year process for the planning grant, and then they could apply for the next phase, which is referred to as the implementation phase, and that is for approximately $35 million, and that would be a 5-year planning process. I think I've covered everything. I would refer to Brian Gage, the AMHA director. Brian, if you care to add anything to those comments.
And thanks, Helen. We started this process a little bit over a year ago when we looked at what we can do as a housing authority, being one of the biggest property owners in Summit Lake, to build on the momentum that the city, the Civic Commons, the Knight Foundation, and the community has going in Summit Lake. And this opportunity kind of showed how we could play our role in keeping that momentum going into the future, building upon it, and leveraging the work that's already been done. So I'm really excited to go forward with this grant. The application deadline is September 14th. So we will be spending the next roughly 50 days or so frantically putting together a competitive application to try and get this planning grant over the next couple of years to keep momentum going in Summit Lake.
Can I just add one quick comment? We would request suspension of the rules. The application was released on July 15th, and it is due on September 14th, and that is the council's first day back. So we'd like to have this approved and available to AMHA to submit with their application, if at all possible.
Okay, very good. So questions or comments? From any committee members or council members reference to this commitment? President Somerville?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to speak in support of this piece. AMHA for many years has been a really great community partner, not just for Ward 3 in its entirety, but particularly also in Summit Lake. I think this project is a complement to the investment and the work that we're doing currently in Summit Lake. The process of engaging residents, which we have been doing since the very beginning through Akron Civic Commons. So the timing is perfect. Just wanted to speak in support of this piece and hoping that all of my colleagues will also support suspension of the rules on this piece, because we are up against a time constraint.
Okay, thank you, President Somerville and Mr. Swirsky.
Yeah, just, I also wanted to thank AMHA for the good work they do, not only on this project, but each and every day, and their responsiveness in my ward when concerns or collaboration is needed. They have been always there and very open and willing to work with the community. I think this is a great project, and I support Councilwoman Somerville's motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Yes, I was just curious. This might be a question for AMHA. Do we have any sense of what percentage of the residents at Edgewood as well as Cascade Village, what percentage of those residents did return back to the original site, be it Edgewood or Cascade?
I can tell you generally, I know we do have specific data, but I don't have that at hand right now. Generally, with most of these developments, what happens is families are offered a housing choice voucher to relocate. That housing choice voucher gives them the opportunity to move to any market rate development anywhere in the city. And they really do look at that as a perk. Unfortunately, the rate of return is not great, but the residents are very happy with what they get in return, which is the opportunity to choose any development or any unit in the city and get a subsidized rent at that property.
Just a follow-up, have there ever been, I mean, concerns or about, gentrification, anything like that, and the fact that maybe, I'm not able to turn back to my original neighborhood?
So, and that's one of the motivations for targeting this neighborhood is we believe that this neighborhood and the momentum that's going on here could risk gentrification in the future. And our goal is to preserve affordable housing in Summit Lake for the long term and make sure that the families that live there have an opportunity to stay in Summit Lake or come back to Summit Lake.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Freeman? Questions? No. Any other questions or comments from anyone this time? Questions, Mr. Hardy?
Just to add on that, I think that Councilman Freeman brings up a central question that we obviously have asked ourselves in partnering with AMHA. And I think it's also worth noting that OID is working on, in consultation with Civic Commons, we've just begun the internal process of putting together a true planning process for the rest of the Summit Lake neighborhood. And so, there, as many of you know, that between the city and the land bank, 2/3 of the neighborhood is owned publicly by one of those two entities. So it's a great challenge, but also a great opportunity to, as Brian said, both preserve affordable housing, but then make sure that anyone who wants to take one of those choice neighborhood vouchers could stay in Summit Lake if we could get some development going, within some of those vacant lots. So it's something that we're hoping over the course of, of course, we plan to be successful. So over the course of this 2-year planning process, we'll also be doing our more traditional approach through the Civic Commons process of a traditional neighborhood plan, so that we can have those things hopefully firing at the same time in the best of scenarios, so that folks who may not want to return to the new development but want to stay in the neighborhood still have that option.
Very good, thank you. Further questions or comments?
Yes.
Mr. Mobian?
Yes. A follow-up question to what Mr. Freeman asked, because I was curious as well. Do we actually go back and survey those families after these facilities are built and available for them to consider? Or this is the impression that we get after they leave their homes for them to be redeveloped? I'm just curious as to how do we conclude that they're happy and satisfied with where they are. That's the one question. The second question is, Helen talked about good schools. I'm assuming that this collaboration involves the Akron Public Schools Board and that entity when you do this project.
Let me answer those quickly in reverse order. One is that yes, the schools are a component of the application. We actually get points, and Superintendent James is on board with the application for down there. So we will be getting those points for participation and collaboration with the schools. Going back to the first question is, I can tell you at least with Edgewood and with Cascade Village, if we do get to the point of implementation funding, where we would be doing some renovations and relocation of families there, there are specific requirements in the grant that we track and log every single family that lived there on the date of application, and we follow them through up until the units are available and follow them afterwards. So there is specific tracking of individual families at the development, finding what their needs are, helping them relocate, and then also helping to bring them back if they wish. There's funding that's built into the application specifically for that, and that is a requirement of the grant.
And do you have many to return?
So historically, in the previous two in Edgewood and honestly in the Hope 6 program nationally, there has not been a great amount of families that return back to the community. I think part of the reason is it's a long time in between moving out and moving back, and families reestablish themselves in a different community, and start liking that other community, and don't necessarily want to relocate back. So, it's encouraged, it's incentivized for them to come back, but it's also their choice as to where they want to live. So, but empirically, the data has shown that most of the families do, once they move on, they don't return back to the community. But
they're not priced out. Are they priced out of these units? Is
that
a
would not be
concern?
the reason. That would not be the reason that they couldn't return.
I couldn't hear you.
They'd still be eligible for the affordable units.
So they wouldn't be priced out, you said. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
You are correct. They would not be priced out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any more questions or comments? None. Okay, is there a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report? Mr. Swirsky,
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We'll report that out favorable this evening and invite everyone back at 7 o'clock. We're adjourned. Thank you. Oh, it's bye. Mr. Hardy.